Amidst all the news of US-led trade and tariff war against countries, one very critical thing has gone unnoticed. China turning the screws on India. In the past few months, China has blocked export of specialty fertilizers, rare earth magnets, specialty tunnel boring equipment to India. China has imposed an unofficial blockade on exports of many such items to India, though officially there is no ban in place. So why is China doing this amidst a supposed reset of India-China ties? And how should India respond to this? Let's discuss. Hello guys, I am Saurav and welcome to the ARC. As per reports, China has unofficially suspended the export of specialty fertilizers to India over the past 2 months, without restricting exports to other countries. These specialty fertilizers are non-subsidized soil nutrients, crucial for enhancing crop yields in high-value crops such as fruit and vegetables. India imports between 150,000 to 160,000 tons of specialty fertilizers during the June to December period. And worryingly, India's dependence on China for these specialty fertilizers is about 80% of the total requirement. Shipments from factories in China are subject to inspections by the Chinese government, and as per reports, Chinese authorities have reportedly ceased inspections of consignments meant for Indian buyers, effectively stalling exports without announcing an official ban. Though the demand for these chemicals have been rising, domestic industries don't have the capacity to produce these chemicals in volumes in such a short notice. In April this year, in the backdrop of US-China trade war, China imposed export controls on rare earth elements and magnets, which are used in production of a range of equipment, starting from automobiles and semiconductors to wind turbines, defense equipment, and other such high-tech devices. A rare earth magnet is a magnet made from one of the rare earth elements, of which there are 17 in the lanthanide series of metals in the periodic table, and scandium and yttrium. But how rare are these elements? They are not actually rare and are present abundantly in the Earth's crust, but they are not found in large concentrated amounts. Rather, they are mixed in other elements, making them economically challenging to mine. And by far, China is the world's largest producer of rare earth magnets. China controls 70% of rare earth magnets production and 90% of the supplies. More than 90% of the magnet imports to India comes from China. Since the ban in April, the sector that is hit most in India is the automobile industry, because most of these magnets are used in EV motors. Manufacturers are scrambling for costlier alternatives, as their reserves have almost exhausted. Though China's ban on REE exports was in response to US President Donald Trump's earlier tariffs, as per latest reports, a deal between the US and China has been worked out, under which China will continue supplying rare earth magnets to the US. But China has not lifted the ban for India. But why does India have to import these magnets from China? As per latest survey reports, India has the world's third largest rare earth reserves at 6.9 million metric tons, as opposed to China's 44 million tons. But domestic production in India is limited to only 2,900 tons, whereas China produces 270,000 tons. Indian Rare Earths Limited, a Government of India PSU, refines rare earth oxides from heavy metal ores containing REEs. But the processing technology for refining oxides into alloys and then into magnets is not there in India yet. Now recognizing the criticality of the issue, India launched the National Critical Mineral Mission to establish self-reliance in the critical mineral sector. Government is planning a 3,500 to 5,000 crore rupees scheme to incentivize production of rare earth minerals and magnets in the country. Companies like Vedanta, JSW, and India's biggest importer of rare earth magnets, Sona Comstar, have shown interest. But it's a long-term plan. In the interim, India has to discuss with China for lifting the ban. and also find other alternative sources too. But how did China manage a monopoly on supply of such a critical element? It's a geopolitical masterstroke by China. In the 1990s, China deliberately pursued rare earth mining and refining as a strategic industry. Starting from offering low-cost loans and subsidies to lenient environmental regulations. Though REE mining and processing can have significant environmental impacts, and the ploy worked, driving its competitors out of business, both due to economic and environmental reasons. China thereby established its dominance not only as the supplier of rare earth elements, but also as the global processor of REE magnets, batteries, and electronics. It shows China's strategic thinking and the rest of the world, including India's complacency. However, despite China having an upper hand, this disruption is temporary in my opinion, as more and more countries invest in domestic production and processing of REE. China's duplicity does not end with fertilizers and magnets. Recently, it was reported that 3 tunnel boring machines meant for the Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail corridor are stuck at a Chinese port. TBMs are ordered from German company Herrenknecht, but they are manufactured in China. These are essential for the 21-kilometer underground section from Bandra Kulla complex to Silfata. 2 of the TBMs are supposed to arrive October last year and 1 early this year, but none has arrived because of not getting clearance from China. The matter is being taken up at the diplomatic level. You might have seen the video of Piyush Goyal, India's Commerce and Industry Minister, taking up the matter publicly with German Vice Chancellor Robert Habeck last year.
See, your German company is supplying us some tunnel boring machines which they make in China. What's the name? But China is not allowing them to send it to it.
They're producing in China?
Yeah.
And some component going from Germany, but
We
most
should
of it
stop
made in
buying
China.
German equipment now.
India's bullet train project faces significant delay because of delay in delivery of these TBMs. Recently, it was reported that Foxconn, Apple's largest contract manufacturer, has withdrawn more than 300 Chinese engineers and technicians from its Indian iPhone production facilities over the past 2 months. It's a big setback for Apple, which has invested heavily in expanding its manufacturing footprint in India. India currently accounts for 1/5 of global iPhone production. Foxconn recently invested $2.56 billion in its plant near Bengaluru and has plans to manufacture 100,000 iPhones by December this year. In March to May alone, Foxconn exported iPhones worth $3.2 billion from India, most of them to the United States. Apple in the past few years has been diversifying its production and supply chain by moving its manufacturing and assembly lines to countries like India and Vietnam to reduce its dependence on China, and it has not gone down well with China. First of all, these are not one-off incidents. These are calculated, concerted efforts by China to hamper India's ambitions to become an alternative to China in the global supply chain. India-China relations changed significantly since the Galwan conflict in 2020. But recently a thaw in the relationship was observed, starting from the resumption of Kailash Mansarovar Yatra after 5 years, to Indian NSA Ajit Doval and Defense Minister Rajnath Singh visiting China for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting and meeting their counterparts. Then what prompted China's reaction? There are many factors that need to be analyzed. First of all, a lot of uncertainties came into place with US President Donald Trump's tariff war on countries. India is currently negotiating with the US for a trade deal, which can be announced very soon.
I think we're going to have a deal with India, possibly, and that's going to be a different kind of a deal. It's going to be a deal where we're able to go in and compete. Right now, India doesn't accept anybody in. I think India is going to do that, and if they do that, we're going to have a deal for much less tariffs.
Now you have to understand the game. If the tariffs on Indian goods being exported to the US is less than that of the Chinese ones, then India will have a clear competitive advantage. While China is miles ahead in terms of manufacturing capacity and state support with subsidies on product. But the advantage won't last forever, as we have seen with iPhone and other electronics manufacturing being shifted to other countries. And this is hurting China deeply, and there seems no respite. Secondly, China has been circumventing the US tariff by relabeling its products and routing them through countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, and Thailand. The US now wants these countries to reduce and restrict Chinese footprint in their supply chains if they wish to do business with the US. India, on the other hand, post the Galwan incident in 2020, introduced restrictions on investments from countries sharing a land border with India, specifically to target Chinese investments in the country. China wants India to revisit this. There is another reason China is miffed. As the revered Tibetan Buddhist monk Dalai Lama turns 90, he recently announced that he will have a successor after his death, and that his office will have the sole authority to identify his reincarnation. The cycle of rebirth lies at the core of Tibetan Buddhist belief, but China considers the Dalai Lama as a separatist and insists that it alone holds the authority to approve the next Dalai Lama and has the final say in Tibetan Buddhism. Dalai Lama escaped from Tibet in 1959 as Chinese troops forcefully quelled an armed uprising in Tibet, and he came to India. He currently resides in Dharamsala in Himachal Pradesh. He is a living symbol of Tibet's struggle for greater freedoms under Chinese Communist Party rule. And China doesn't like it and has been putting pressure on India. The US-led trade war has started to hurt China, and despite China signaling a reset in India-China ties, it continues to put pressure on India. We have seen how they supported Pakistan during India's Operation Sindoor against Pakistan.
One border, two adversaries. So Pakistan was the front face. We had China providing all possible support. And it's no surprise, because if you were to look at statistics, in the last 5 years, 81% of the military hardware that Pakistan is getting is all Chinese. And another thing that China perhaps has seen is that he's able to test his weapons against, say, various other weapon systems that are there. It's like a live lab which is available.
India has to develop domestic capacity and find alternatives to reduce dependence on China. Thanks for watching. Keep following the ARC for more such interesting videos.